Ladies and gentlemen, hello, how are you? I welcome you to a very special coverage and the coverage of the National Union of Journalists, Vigil, in support of the journalist martyred at Gaza. Now, if you do remember, there was a vigil held not long ago, only a couple of weeks ago, on the August of 13th, and we did cover it quite extensively. In fact, I personally covered that vigil, and I was part of that vigil. And Right Honorable MP John McDonald, he was there, and he is the head of the NUJ's parliamentary group as well. And as you can see on the screen, the coverage, there was a quite extensive coverage, and I did a live stream of almost an hour.
Are doing very bravely,
How
and in last 22
so we would definitely not try to show that same live stream again, but the live stream was very widely covered. As you can see, it had only on Twitter, it had almost 110k views, as you can see, and it was quite extensively covered by myself. There was this vigil again on the 27th of August, in which a letter was presented to the Prime Minister's office at 10 Downing Street, followed by a vigil right across the street. Unfortunately, I couldn't become a
Have
part.
been killed in Gaza
Yeah.
in last 20.
Unfortunately, I had some prior commitments, so I couldn't be there myself. But I had a commitment to cover the event, and I sent a team comprising of two very able young men were there. Two very able young men of my production team were there. They covered this event on the 27th of August, which was arranged again by the London freelance branch. Now, before I go to the coverage, which was prepared, extensive coverage of the vigil and the letter given to the Downing Street about the journalist slain at Gaza, I would like to give you a background of. There's been very extensive coverage. There wasn't much coverage of the original vigil or the first vigil previous to this one on the 13th of August. Although we covered it, the NUJ covered it, and there was considerable coverage, but the vigil on the 27th of August got an extensive coverage, just to give you a feel of how important the matter of Gaza, the matter of Palestine is. And after the announcement of Sir Keir Starmer that he's going to accept Palestine as a state, there are doubts still. There are a lot of conspiracy theories about it. I'm not going to get involved in those. I will just state facts regarding the NUJ's vigil on 27th and the extensive coverage it got. I won't go into the details of it, but I would definitely recommend all of you, ladies and gentlemen, to please go on the National Union of Journalists London freelance branch Twitter page, and I can show it to you right now, and you can get all the extensive coverage. I am showing you the page right now. This is how it looks. It's at NUJ_LFB in capital. That is NUJ's official page, where you're going to find me as well. And in the previous vigil on August 14th, the reports are there. NUJ's Secretary General Laura Davison, she also spoke at the vigil. The vigil was held. 14th August is a very memorable day for the Pakistani community because Pakistan got its independence from the British colony. Imagine that. But that was a success. 181 plus journalists were, they were remembered at that particular day, and the coverage was there. But talking about this present vigil, it has very extensive coverage. Various mainstream British media, which we call the legacy media outlets, have covered this, the event. And the previous one is also covered by the Guardian, but this one has been covered by Sky and by. I was hoping GB News would cover it, but of course, we know why they're not doing it, or they should do it, and it might not suit any one particular individual's agenda. But we're not going over there. But I'm just scrolling through the page of the NUJ's London freelance branch, which is going to, and I want to give an idea about this vigil on the 27th of August, which was held opposite Downing Street, and it proceeded handing over a letter from the NUJ to the Prime Minister's office, and this vigil, in fact, was I would say the crowds. The footage I'm going to show you would tell you that the crowds might have been 2 or 3% less than what they were in the previous vigil, but the coverage has been massive of the vigil on the 27th of August. And why I'm emphasizing on the coverage, the reason is that there is a change in mood of British public, who are obviously the consumer of the mainstream media, and that is why the mainstream media is being forced to give coverage to the NUJ's vigil. They just simply cannot brush NUJ, and especially NUJ's freelance branch, under the carpet, and credit must be given where it's due to Penny Quinton, chair of the National Union of Journalists London freelance branch. So just to give you an idea about the coverage, the IFJ also covered it, and then particularly the vigil on the 27th of August, that was covered by, I'm just showing you John McDonnell's sharing the story of the Guardian, and the Guardian covered it quite extensively, as you can see on your screen right now. So the headlines are: Israel's attack on hospital in Gaza may constitute a war crime on many fronts. Yeah, all right. So John McDonnell wrote that over 200 journalists killed by Israeli Defense Force, and they claim they are not targeting journalists. Hospitals are bombed and rescue workers killed, and they claim it was never intended. They are liars and war criminals, and one day they will pay for their crimes. Now that is, ladies and gentlemen, Right Honorable John McDonnell for you. And he's a sitting member of the parliament. And then the vigils are being covered, and there have been vigils all across, particularly again, credit must be given where it's due to the Dublin branch of the NUJ. And the Irish, they are quite brave in their support for Palestine and Gaza, what's happening over there. But even in England, we saw the kind of coverage. This is on your screen. You can see on your screen you can see the photographers covering the delivery of the London freelance branch NUJ letter to Downing Street at number 4. I'll be showing you some more coverage because before I go to the mainstream coverage, this was my tweet on the August 27th. I couldn't be there, but it was sent by my team. So it was just setting the mood of the crowd which was there, the interest. It was a busy day, it was a working day, but even then you could see this crowd holding placards of all the almost 200 martyred journalists at Gaza. So it's again, why I'm emphasizing, because I have seen a change in the mood of the British people, the British public, and at the end of the day, the British government, it is a democracy, and they have to listen to the public, and they have to respond accordingly. And the mainstream media, there are so many conspiracy theories, rather, they're in fact true. They're not only conspiracy theories. The mainstream media, the legacy media, is being controlled. We know by whom. But even then, there has been such massive coverage of the event that you cannot just, brush this entire episode under the carpet because, I mean, you might control the mainstream media, or you might have serious influence on different politicians because of different reasons. We all know what reasons we're talking about, but it is no more possible to, ignore what's happening at Gaza. And Jeremy Corbyn was also there. Let's see what he had to say before we move on.
Make any comments.
Media need to do what does Western media need to do differently now? Does the media need to do what does Western media need to do differently now?
I was saying to one of your colleagues now, just asked me a question about news values. If the channels concerned cannot bring any humane news values to their commentary, then don't make any comments. Just show film of what is happening in Gaza and allow the public to make up their own mind.
My God, this is really massive. This is really massive. After Channel 4 showed the documentary about by the Basement Films, which was turned down by BBC, and these statements, you just cannot ignore it. And the coverage, even from Sky News, it was always there. It was also there. Sky News covered the event. The British journalists demand action from Prime Minister over war in Gaza. So you see, this was Sky News coverage, and you can find it all on the Twitter, formerly Twitter, now X page of the National Union of Journalists freelance branch. But this is all going on, and you cannot simply hide it anymore. And there was then coverage from Al Jazeera. Obviously, majority of the journalists were working for Al Jazeera, but this coverage is definitely not biased. Just have a listen to what the coverage
journalists
is. Also, yeah. So kind courtesy of Al Jazeera English, I'd like to show you the coverage. Before I move on, it's just a 1 minute 47 seconds video clip before we move on to the extensive coverage which I've got from my team of about 25 minutes. But before we move there, please have a look at what the coverage was from Al Jazeera.
Got on my hands here a letter demanding action, and a group of UK journalists is about to hand this in to the British Prime Minister Keir Starmer to demand that he put pressure, real pressure, on Israel to stop killing journalists in record numbers. And I've come to Downing Street to watch him do it.
This is the London freelance branch of the NUJ, the National Union of Journalists, and these people have come to this famous black door because they want the UK to live up to its professed commitments to press freedom.
Now, this letter has got 6 points, but the main ones are, what are you going to do, Keir Starmer, to support a binding UN convention on protecting journalists? Also, what are you going to do to support the access of other journalists to get into Gaza to report on what's really going on there? And what are you going to do to support an ICC investigation into the deliberate targeting of journalists by Israel?
These placards are for the more than 200 journalists that Israel has killed in Gaza. It's been the single deadliest conflict for journalists by a huge margin, and no other war comes close. The dead include correspondent Anas al-Sharif and 9 other Al Jazeera media workers.
Today, we will say their names and honour the courage of all the journalists murdered in this genocide. To murder a journalist covering a conflict is a war crime.
Now, journalism, as Al Jazeera has long pointed out, is not a crime. It's not something to be prosecuted for, and it's certainly not something to be killed for. Now, these are principles that UK Prime Minister Keir Starmer says he upholds. And these journalists are saying it is time for the UK government to stand up for that and pressure Israel to stop killing their colleagues.
All right, that was some really good coverage by Al Jazeera, but it wasn't only on Al Jazeera, as I've told you. It was covered by Sky TV, and another highlight was of the day, which you might be interested in knowing, is that there was. Let me show you. In fact, yeah. So here we are. So this is their Sangeeta Miska, and she honors the Palestinian journalist, and she is a very famous artist and a singer here in the UK. She was also there, so we've got a lot of interesting people from different walks of life coming there. and supporting. And it is, you can't really ignore what's going on. The Independent covered the story as well. And let me show you the Independent coverage. The point I was making was that, you see, the people who are now standing up for war crimes at Gaza are the people who are, you can't brush them off as a ethnic minority. They're not an ethnic minority. They've got, they're the mainstream population, the citizens of the United Kingdom. And what United Kingdom really does matter. The Independent covered the story as well, with the headline that NUJ branch, and that's the London freelance branch, questions Prime Minister on journalist killed in Gaza ahead of the vigil. And then they said that at least 189 people, Palestinian journalists and media workers, have been killed by Israeli forces in Gaza since October 2023. The CPJ said, and the coverage was quite extensive, and the letter was given to Keir Starmer, the questions which were asked to Keir Starmer. It was all, it's all happening. And what NUJ's London, the National Union of Journalists, London freelance branch is doing is definitely making a difference. I mean, it's all about making a difference, isn't it? People do ask that, all right, you're doing what you're doing, but what's it going to do? What's going to achieve? Well, it is achieving awareness. It is achieving policy change, hopefully, because the power corridors of the United Kingdom, of Britain, are being knocked at, and it is simply not possible to ignore what's going on right now. So with that context, I bring you again to the NUJ's Vigil for Martyred Journalist of Gaza, today's coverage, as I had announced it, and I want to show you. I want to show you the exclusive footage, which has been prepared throughout the vigil. My team, the two young lads, were there, and they covered the event. Please don't mind if you find some shortcomings there, but they have done a very good job there. This is what I believe, and let me show you. And if I need to speak up in between, I will, but otherwise the video of 35 minutes is self-explanatory. As always, I want to give you my coverage is designed to show the atmosphere which was there at the Downing Street during the vigil, and that has always been my endeavor. Well, there have been professional journalists covering the entire event, and I've already shown you the kind of coverage in the mainstream media the vigil is getting. But let's go on ground and let's see what the environment was, and what the emotions were, and what was actually going on. So over to the coverage prepared by my team. A Soldier Speaks exclusive for you. All these placards.
I must particularly honour the courage of Mariam Aboudaker, who, as many journalists are, was also a mother. And as many mothers who are journalists often do, work as freelance. She was described in the AP press release as a freelance killed after her colleagues were named. So now I want us all to say aloud the name Mariam Aboudaker and reflect on the mighty courage that it must take to report independently in a genocide. Please take a deep breath in and let us together say her name. Mariam Aboudaker, we honour you. Thank you, everyone. Of course, we welcome the statement by the UK Foreign Secretary that civilians, healthcare workers and journalists must be protected. However, In the light of these atrocities, we need the UK government to do whatever it takes to bring about an immediate ceasefire and an end to this genocide. This further horrifying atrocity adds urgency to the questions we asked of Keir Starmer in the letter we delivered to 10 Downing Street today at 4 p.m. London Freelance branch of the National Union of Journalists welcomed Keir Starmer's statement on the 11th of August, in which the Prime Minister said he was gravely concerned by the killing on August 10 of 6 journalists by the State of Israel and his call for an independent investigation. Back on the 31st of July, Irene Khan, the UN Special Rapporteur on Freedom of Expression, expressed deep concern that without any evidence to back its claims, the Israeli army has repeatedly accused al-Sharif and other Palestinian journalists of being terrorists or supporters of Hamas. Her fears for al-Sharif's safety were borne out, with the Israeli army explicitly announcing that it had targeted Anas al-Sharif. London Freelance branch represents 3,000 freelance journalists within the membership of the National Union, and we wish to reinforce the call by the NUJ General Secretary Laura Davison that the Israeli military openly admitting to these atrocities brings into sharp focus the need for international action to end this impunity. We once again reiterate our call for the UK government, who claim to be permitted to press freedom, to exert serious pressure to protect journalists, uphold international law, and support an investigation by the International Criminal Court into the blatant targeting of journalists and media workers by Israeli forces. There must be immediate international action to end this obscene behavior. So we're now going to hear Wael Dardua has recorded a statement for this vigil. And so I'm going to ask Mariam to come and put the statement through the PA, and we're going to listen to Wael address us in Arabic, and then Mariam is going to read the translation of Wael's statement for us so we can all understand.
Mr. Wael Dahdoh is not only a symbol for Al Jazeera, is not only a symbol in Gaza, but it's a symbol for each journalist in conflict zone. That when you are in the front line and losing your dearest, unfortunately, you don't have time to grieve. You have to keep going because you have a toll in your shoulder to tell the truth. That's what happened to Mr. Wael Dahdoh. And he didn't save an effort. When we asked him to honor us with a speech to hear, he sent it to us. And when we hear that, he didn't mention his son. He didn't mention his family. Because every single journalist in Gaza is Wael Dahdoh's son and daughter. He will keep on his shoulder the rest of the freelancers, of the casualties that are considered a collateral damage because they are Gazan journalists. I will leave you now to hear his voice in Arabic, but we will translate it later. Now I will leave you with Wael Dahdoh's voice to us in Arabic. Maybe there is lots of Arabic media doesn't want to need translation, but I will going to translate it later anyway.
السلام عليكم ورحمة الله وبركاته. يأتي بدء نتوجه بالتحية والتقدير لكل واحد وواحدة منكم، كل باسمه ولقبه ومكانته ووظيفته أيضا. ثانيا، في هذا اليوم، في هذه المناسبة، وبعد كل ما جرى ملائكة الصحفيين في قطاع غزة وبحق المدنيين من تشريد ومجاعة وإبادة وتدمير وحصار، كان لزاما علينا أن نتوجه إليكم بهذا النداء ونقول نداء 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 نخاطب فيه ضمائركم وأخلاقكم وإنسانيتكم ومواثيق الشرف التي التزمتم بها، بأن تقوموا بكل ما تستطيعوا به من أجل زملائكم في قطاع غزة، من أجل الإنسانية في قطاع غزة، من أجل المجاعة في قطاع غزة، من أجل الإبادة في قطاع غزة. الحكومة البريطانية، رئاسة الوزراء، البرلمان البريطاني، النخب والنقابات، الزملاء الصحفيين، كل واحد منكم بإمكانه القيام بالكثير من الخطوات، بالكثير من المهمات، بالكثير من المهمات التي من شأنها مهما كانت بسيطة أن تؤدي إلى وقف أخطر مجاعة شهدها العصر وأخطر إبادة شهدتها البشرية. هذا الأمر يمليه عليكم ضميركم قبل كل شيء، أخلاقكم قبل كل شيء، إنسانيتكم قبل كل شيء، وبالتأكيد مهامكم السياسية والقانونية كل في مكانته أيضا تملي عليه. الكثير الزملاء الصحفيين لديهم واجب كبير جدا لأن يقوموا به زملائهم. من 240 من الزملاء والزميلات استشهدوا، أبيدوا، قتلوا، استهدفوا بنيران مباشرة فقط.
It is mandatory to address you with this appeal and say, appeal, appeal, appeal. We address your conscience. We address your morals. We address your humanity and the codes of honor and codes of conduct to which of you are being committed to. Do everything you can do. Do everything for your colleagues in Gaza, for humanity in Gaza, for famine, for the genocide. The British government, the Prime Minister's office, the British Parliament, and the elite, and all the unions in the UK, fellow journalists, each one of you, you can do it. Take many steps, take many tasks. However simple it is, you could lead to stopping the most dangerous famine we have ever witnessed. It's the most dangerous genocide humanity had been witnessed. This is dedicated to you by your conscience above all else, your morals above all else, your humanity above all else. Indeed, your political and legal duties, each in its own position, also dictate that you do a lot. Fellow journalists, you have a huge duty to perform for your colleagues. More than 242 colleagues, both male and females, were murdered, exterminated, killed, or targeted by direct fire. Their families were scattered, torn apart, displaced, and killed. Some of them are still wounded, and some of them are still prisoners in Israeli prisons. Therefore, with all the horrific and heartbreaking images coming from the Gaza Strip, you must do your duty. We expect a lot from you, a lot from your conscience, a lot from morals, and we will continue to wait for you to carry out your duty with all humanity, all seriousness, and also with all professionalism. May the peace and mercy and blessing in God be upon you. This was Walid Dahduh's message to us today. And
that's Mariam Al-Sayah for you, and standing right beside her is Penny Quinton.
And I would like to say to Mr. Walid Dahduh and to our fellow journalists in Gaza, message has been received. And I would like to recall and quote what we always sing in our call when we are killed. When we are killed, one of us is going to flourish thousands. الواحد منا يزهر آلافا. If you, Netanyahu, would think for once that with killing and silencing our journalists in Gaza that you're silencing them, no. Lots of thousands are coming to speak for them. And here we are, you targeted the family of Walid Dahduh, and Walid Dahduh's speech is here in front of them on the street. rather be buried, we will gonna hold it in our shoulders. In the rain, in the bad weather, and wherever, Netanyahu will never silence us. Thank you very much.
Thanks, Mariam. We're now going to hear from Sangeeta Miska. Sangeeta, please give a warm welcome for Sangeeta.
Hello everyone, it's good to see you. My name is Sangeeta Miska. I'm a broadcaster and journalist. I worked at BBC News for many years and am now probably best known for being dismissed by the commercial radio station LBC following my robust interview with an Israeli spokesperson. False claims have been endlessly repeated by so-called prestige news outlets across TV, radio, newspapers, and websites, with little or no pushback or caveat, thereby giving credence to Israeli propaganda. That includes unsubstantiated claims against Gaza journalist Anas al-Sharif, who was part of a Reuters Pulitzer Prize-winning team. He had documented in gut-wrenching detail the relentless destruction of his homeland day in and day out over 21 months. Anas was a household name to the Al Jazeera audience. The Committee to Protect Journalists and UN rapporteur had warned that he was in acute danger a month before he was killed. Governments and leading news organizations said and did absolutely nothing. On the 10th of August, he was assassinated. Israel did not shy away from its actions. Instead, it accused Anas of being a terrorist without providing any credible evidence. It also failed to explain why it killed 4 of his colleagues, wiping out an entire Al Jazeera news team in one attack. Instead, Israel continued to threaten journalists. I recently interviewed the investigative reporter, Anthony Lowenstein. He has reported on Israel's occupation of Gaza and the West Bank for many years now. Anthony describes Palestinian journalists as, and I quote, some of the most heroic individuals on the planet. They have to navigate both Israeli attacks and threats and Western contempt for their craft. Then, last weekend, we saw Israel attack the Nasser hospital in Khan Yunis. They killed 20 people. As journalists and first responders rushed to do their jobs, they too were killed. All 5 journalists worked for leading international media brands, including Reuters, AP, Al Jazeera, and Middle East Eye. They were freelancers: Mariam Dagger, Ahmed Abu Aziz, Moaz Abu Taha, and contractors, Hussam al-Masiri and Hatem Khaled. The method used to annihilate them was the so-called double tap strike. Foreign correspondent Secunda Kamani described a double tap as a method used by terrorist organizations, including ISIS. It should never be the preserve of democracies and self-styled moral armies. How do we know all of this? The answer, ironically, is that Israel's killing was broadcast live on an Arabic TV channel by Palestinian media workers. Back here in the UK, the next day, only 2 out of 12 national newspapers carried a front page photograph of at least one of the dead Palestinian journalists. The BBC's flagship radio news programme Today, where I once proudly worked, did not mention the killings in its headlines. The story was relegated to a footnote in a programme that is 3 hours long. I ask you, had Russia killed 5 journalists and emergency workers live on television, would the bulk of the British media have ignored or sidebarred it? The answer, I believe, is no. So what's the reason for the silence? You can draw your own conclusions. But Anthony Lowenstein puts it like this. What we are witnessing is, quote, Western racism and dehumanization toward Arab reporters who don't work for corporate media in London or Vigil. I, for my part, agree with them, because we have at least 2 years' worth of evidence. Palestinian journalists are the eyes and ears of the world. Without their work, the war crimes perpetrated by Israel would have gone undocumented. That's not just an opinion, it's the conclusion of every single credible international humanitarian law specialist, former diplomat, and aid worker that I've spoken to. When Hamas broke multiple laws of war on October the 7th, international news crews were permitted to enter Israel to report it, and rightly so. Yet almost 2 years on, not a single foreign reporting team has been allowed into Gaza unaccompanied to support Palestinian colleagues who carried the burden of detailing months of death, destruction, and famine. The UK government has, thus far, done little to address repeated calls to help protect Palestinian media workers. Instead, it has left to us, the NUJ's London Freelance Chapel, to speak up for our colleagues in Gaza and wherever journalists are at risk in the world, be it at home or abroad. Be in no doubt, the death of Palestinian journalists is not just the story of individuals. It is the death of journalism. If Israel is not held to account for breaching the protections afforded to journalists in Gaza under international law, the international community is giving the green light to every country around the world that we can be killed with impunity simply for doing our jobs. Photographer Barry Zink, a freelance stringer who worked for Reuters, cut her press pass into pieces after Israel assassinated Anas al-Sharif. She said she could no longer conceive of wearing it with anything but deep shame after Reuters repeated baseless accusations leveled at him by his pillars. She wrote, I don't know what it means to honor the courage and sacrifice of journalists in Gaza, the bravest and best to ever live. But going forward, I will direct whatever contributions I have to offer with that front of mind. It is advice that many of us could take. I end with this appeal. If you are a journalist and you have not yet spoken up for Palestinian media workers in Gaza who have been targeted and killed by Israeli forces while relying on their testimony, contacts, video footage, and sound as the bedrock of your understanding, analysis, and reporting, then the time to speak up is right now. Please do not hide behind a misunderstanding of impartiality. Look at the evidence. And if you don't or won't, then shame on you. Thank you and well done to all of you for being here today. And thank you for listening.
Jamal Sobti al-Falafini, journalist killed by the violent entity.
Iman al-Shamti Fadi Hasbuna, killed in Palestine by the IDF for doing their job.
Ahmed Abu Shah, killed in Palestine.
Mohammed Balusha, targeted, murdered in Palestine. Mohammed Qassam al-Jamal, a journalist and farmer, murdered in Palestine.
Saeed al-Sawil, truth teller, hero, and journalist killed by the Israeli occupying forces in Palestine.
Imad al-Wahid,
martyred by the IDF.
More than 240 journalists murdered. Hassan Asiya, just one of the more than 240. Our thoughts and prayers are with him, his family, and all of those around the world that stand solid.
Mohammed Abu Sukhil, a journalist killed in Palestine.
Mohammed Al-Harbi, another journalist killed in Palestine. Mohammed Abu Samra. Mohammed Abu Jasser, a journalist killed in Palestine.
Abdel Halim Awad, one of the many hundreds of journalists murdered in Palestine.
Fatima Hassola.
Sahar Akram Ryan, journalist killed in Palestine for telling the truth.
Hassan Majdi Abu Wada, journalist killed in Palestine.
Mohammed Ibad Laban, journalist murdered in Palestine.
Ahmad Hesham Abu Arus, one of our colleagues murdered in Palestine.
Nasara Sana, a journalist from Palestine. Allah. Allah. Allah.
Well, ladies and gentlemen, that's it. This was a stellar job by the team sent by BlackBerry Media. Brand owner of Soldier Speaks by Adil Raja and Zeki Werlst. And also, all marks and all credit goes to the National Union of Journalists London Freelance Chapel for organizing this very important vigil. In succession, there was a second vigil. And it has made the intended effect, and the questions presented to 10 Downing Street were asked to the government as well by those in power, by the member parliaments, and it is a very important development. We will keep on following the story, and we will keep on informing you about what's actually going on and what are the latest developments in this case. And special credit goes to Secretary General of the London Freelance Branch of the National Union of Journalists, Penny Quinton, for organizing it, to Mike Holderness, to Mariam Al-Sayah. Excellent job, guys, and I really wish I could have been there, but next time, definitely. But I did send my team as promised, and we will follow through, and we need to realize that journalism is not a crime, and you only kill journalists, and authoritarian states kill journalists, like it happened to Arshad Sharif, my friend. He was assassinated in Kenya by the Pakistani military hunters led hunter intelligence, the ISI. Journalists are only killed when you don't want the truth to come out. And journalism is not a crime, and journalism is the last hope, the last frontier in this day of age for truth, for bringing out the truth. And doing this job is getting difficult with each and every passing day. But as the saying goes, when the going gets tough, the tough gets going. We've got pretty tough lads and pretty tough girls here in journalism, particularly in the freelance branch, as you get more restrictions in the legacy media or in the mainstream media. We've got people like us speaking up on this individual platforms which you've created, and it is your job as the people, as the citizens, to spread the word. If you're going to spread the word, well, the words would matter, because it is at the end of the day the people who make up their minds, the masses. They can move and shape public opinions, public sentiments, and the public opinions and public sentiment shape the markets. And at the end of the day, it is about money, isn't it? It is not a divide in this world about based on religion, based on geography, and based on the color of your skin. I mean, that's a debate for some other day. But definitely, if you spread the word and if you make up your mind, like the mind is being set in the UK, and there is a counter argument, not a counter argument, but a very cunning and sinister sort of quantum movement, I would say, to shift the focus from what's actually happening in the Middle East in particular, or because of the various other decisions taken by the previous government, or the after effects which are being faced. So what do those who are controlling you, the top 1%, they do? They try to shift your focus, and shifting your focus through ultra-nationalism is the best way to do it. By creating a false flag and then doing it, it has been age-old formula of the modern democracies and the modern world, even starting with Hitler, starting with the false flag attack on the German parliament, which allowed the Nazis to take over. Well, who are who are the Nazis of this day and age? Think for yourself. I'm sure you know the answer. So please spread the word, and see you very soon. Thank you.